Welcome back to the program. Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director at Cowry Asset Management, is joining me right now from Lagos. Hello, Mr. Chukwu, and good morning to you from Abuja.
Good morning, Nancy from Lagos.
Hello, Mr. Chukwu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't see you yet. Yes, I can see you now. How is Lagos?
Okay. Well, Lagos is relatively calm today. I think the level of looting and arson has simmered down. People are still at home because the curfew is still there, 24-hour curfew. So, but I think some level of sanity is gradually returning to Lagos.
Speak to me about your experience, because I know you reside close to where the Lekki toll gates or the Lekki shootings happened. Speak to me, give me a first-hand experience. I know also that you were in Abuja that period. You were on my show, I think, that week or so. Or isn't it this week, isn't it? And you had to travel back to Lagos as soon as you heard the news of the curfew. Just speak to me about your experience.
Well, not if I start sharing out the experience here, it's going to take the whole of your program. But I'm going to just try as brief as possible. I live just less than 1,000 meters from the Lekki toll gate. That's less than a kilometer from the Lekki toll gate. So from my home, you could hear the music blaring from the entrance youths. You could hear the announcements. You could actually be part of their discussions, because you would hear everything they said when they are making announcements. And so on that Tuesday, when the shooting started, my children ran back into the sitting room and said, look, there is shooting and there's gunfire around the Lekki toll gate. We could actually hear every cracking of the guns from whoever was making firing the gunshots. But interestingly, just before that, I barely got home less than 10 minutes before the shooting started. I was in Abuja, and when I got information that Lagos State government had imposed a curfew starting, 24-hour curfew starting from 4 p.m., I quickly changed my flight ticket from 5:30 to 1:45 early flight. Tried to get to the airport. The airport road was blocked by the protestants or the NSAS group. So we had to take the Gwarinpa Expressway and busted out at Gwagwalada. Then on our way from Gwagwalada heading to the airport, the road was also blocked. We had to take one way to avoid them and then ran into the airport. I was lucky I made that flight. I was the last person to board that flight, and that flight was the last flight to leave Abuja for Lagos. But interestingly, that was the easy part of the experience. By the time I got into Lagos, the airport was virtually deserted. Got into my car. We took the Mobolaji Bakato the way, and then immediately we climbed the bridge on top of the Lagos State University Hospital. The area boys, not NSAS protesters, were there. Area boys had blocked the road, and they beckoned on us to come. But I looked at the mien of those boys, and I told my driver, better turn. So we turned, and I told him, let's head to the road that links the local airport to the international airport, because that's the Air Force Base area, and that being in front of the Air Force Base, the area would not be blocked. So we took that route. I just got to the intersection of the road when you turn right to get to the toll gate, the international airport toll gate. The NSAS young men and women were there. I wound down and I spoke to them. I thought some of them listened, but one of them just approached me and said, "Look, okay, just respect yourself. There's no road. We've blocked this road. Turn back." So I told my driver, let's turn back. We don't want any incident. We turned back and they said, okay, let's take Agege Motor Road to get to Oshod and climb the bridge towards Anthony. By the time we got just by the foot of that diversion of the ramp to climb to the express road, Papa Express Road, the NSAS boys and guests had blocked that place as well, and they couldn't allow us progress. So we had to make another U-turn and then entered the Ikeja GRA. Luckily for us, there was no group up to Maryland. We entered the Ikorodu Road, then got to Anthony, climbed the bridge. By the time we got to Gbagada, they were there. In fact, my driver told me that one of my former staff was among the rig leaders there. And so I felt by the time they saw the guys see me, he will allow us go. But by the time we got there, Nancy, there were more than 3,000 young people that blogged. There was no way we could have started looking for the young man. And then we were there for some time, but they were orderly. After some time, they will allow a few vehicles to go through. But the bigger problem was when they allowed us go through and we got to Third Mainland Bridge. On Third Mainland Bridge, there were two groups. One was directly on Qatar, the road from Ikoyi to Qatar Bridge, the flyover or under. Then the other one was on top of the bridge, on top of Third Mainland Bridge. So after staying for a couple of, for more than an hour, I decided to come down from the car. But interestingly, while the NSAS protesters were in front, the area boys were behind. So when you are far from where the NSAS were, we were confronted by the area boys who were taking advantage of the demonstration. So they approached us and said, we had to turn back. I said, why would we have to turn back? Of course, you could see the difference. It was like day and light. When you see the protesters, you will know they are completely different from the area boys. So we asked them why we had to turn back. They said, look, we have to settle us so you turn back. So my driver gave them 300 naira. They turned it down and said, look, you can't be driving this car and give us 300. You're among those people we are looking for. So after some time, we have to give them 1,000 naira. And they said, okay, we can now go. But I knew they had no power to actually grant us access because the access was actually restricted in front of us. After sitting there for quite some time, I felt it was getting dark, and I told my driver, the best thing is, look, sitting in this car could be a risk to all of us. Let me come down. I came down, removed my jacket, folded my sleeves, and joined them. And I almost approached them to give me a flag to carry, because the boys and girls were quite peaceful. They were playing. By the time we got there, they were playing national anthem. And when we got there, they only said no vehicular movement. But after some time, they will allow one vehicle to go through. There was no disturbance from them. They were reading out their reasons for protesting. They were showing a lot of patriotic zeal. You could actually relate what they were saying. So I had to walk from Third Mainland Bridge up to Osborne Road when I had gone past all the bottlenecks, all the barriers, and then one of my sons now caught up with me, drove from the house to come and pick me from there. I walked for close to 10 kilometers to the point where there was no longer any of those demonstrations. So it was a very crazy experience. Only for me to get home 10 minutes after they were shooting of the protesters by the toll gate, Lekki toll gate. And I can tell you, Nancy, I was devastated. My way of managing such devastation was to go and lock myself into the room and sleep. That which is what I did. I was I felt so bad that somebody could open fire on these young people. Like I said, I saw them at several points that evening. And I could tell you, I could vouch, I have no reason to vouch for that, but I could tell you that the people I met at the International Airport Road, the people I met at Bagada, the people I met at Third Mainland Bridge, we are all largely peaceful. Fine. There were some area boys, some miscreants that were taking advantage of the demonstrations to extort money, to abuse innocent citizens, or to kind of denigrate the objectives and motives of the NSAS protesters.
Mr. Chukwu, I just had to allow you, since you had a first-hand experience, especially from Abuja to Lagos, and from your own account, just about 10 minutes you got into your house, you started hearing the shootings. Yesterday, I watched the defense spokesperson talking, and from what I gathered, he was actually saying that it could be anybody, at least the summary of it, that the Nigerian army is not taking responsibility for that. Let's talk about the president's speech, because quite a number of people have been speaking in the last few days. In fact, the Senate asked President Buhari to address the nation, and it seemed that when the news came out yesterday afternoon that he was going to address all of us by 7 p.m., many of us were excited to say, okay, what would happen? Because if you take a look at in the last few days, personally, I've not been happy. I've not slept well. I think what's going on around now, people will need to start checking their mental health. It's not that we've not heard of killings. Of course, insecurity is in the country for the past few years. But this one is just a different dimension. Put into perspective for me what you think, how the president's speech came across to you. The 27-paragraph speech, 12 minutes long, yesterday evening. How would you analyze it?
Well, Nancy, what I would say, let me start by saying that this president's speech has been analyzed from 7:15 p.m. last night until this morning. Yeah, all the morning programs of all the national televisions discuss it. At the personal level, what I would say is that I was hoping and listening for fundamental or strategic pronouncements. I mean, Mr. Mongono had actually announced that the president is going to make some very profound pronouncements. So I was listening for some, what you may call, fundamental pronouncements that will get to the root of the issues at stake. But interestingly, I can't remember hearing on any of those issues. I'm not going to overflow the issue that I was also expecting that the president would make reference to the shooting at the toll gate, the shooting of innocent, unarmed civilians that were protesting. I also felt I would hear that empathy, but interestingly, it didn't come up. One of the things which is why I was devastated, is that I expect that the government could have compelling need to disperse protesting youths. But there are several ways to do that. I think there are several tools that would have been exploited before the use of live bullets. And you can only use live bullets if the life of the security agencies were at risk. There are water cannons that can be used to disperse protesting groups. There are also tear gas canisters that can be used to disperse protesting groups. And I actually was expecting that could have been applied the next day.
But tear gas was being used even the days before the Lekki shootings happened. Tear gas was being used, at least what circulated on social media, that we were also seeing live. Tear gas was being used by security forces on people that are protesting peacefully.
Yeah, that's why I said that. What I said that if they needed to disperse the people at the toll gate, there are several tools they could have used without the need to use live bullets. Live bullets I could have imagined anybody would shoot at a young man or young woman who is protesting for the improvement of the living standard of fellow Nigerians. For me, it's beneath it beats any sensible logic. I don't want us to dwell on that. I felt emotionally traumatized by what happened on Tuesday. Like I told you, my way of dealing with such trauma was to lock myself into the room and then and just shut out of all communications. It was a very unpleasant experience of the country. I have had an experience as a student when I was in the University of Lagos, where I was flogged by a soldier during the SAP riot, and I remember what happened that particular incident. They had shut down the University of Lagos. I was going home where there was no vehicle. We were trekking home. And then soldiers approached us and asked where we were coming from. We said we are students of Unilag. They said, where is our ID card? We brought ID card. And then one of them, who was not even part of the conversation, just from nowhere, slammed on us with a koboko. And unfortunately, it happened very close to my residence. And because when this interrogation was going on, people had gathered because they knew me. And a lot of young people had gathered. There were about 3 or 4 soldiers, and we had more than 20 young men and women who had gathered at that point. It was almost a fracas. But a senior military officer among them had just apologized to me for that spanking. And I accepted the apology and calmed down the young people who had gathered, because they were about confronting them. What I had expected that there would have been some level of apology. Of course, I'm happy to hear this afternoon that the vice president had apologized to the families of those who lost their loved ones and those who were injured. But I also thought that could have also come from the highest authority in the land.
You know, the mood of the nation is being watched around the world. And let me take what I saw from Bloomberg this morning. Bloomberg Next Africa wrote, at least posted on the site at 5:45 a.m. this morning. And let me read, and I quote them. "This was the week Nigerians learned that 2 decades of democratic rule have brought scant change. When the ruling elite is threatened, the country's leaders fall back on the tactics used by the military dictators of the 1980s and 1990s, crushed the demonstrations. For 2 weeks, thousands of young Nigerians, many born after the return of democracy, have taken to the streets of the country's biggest cities to express their anger about everything from police brutality to corruption." Mr. Chukwu, are you still there? Now, how would you encapsulate for me the reactions we're getting around the world? You said your own experience. I can remember vividly also my own experience in Lagos. When I was growing up in Lagos, I was born in Lagos, I was brought up in Lagos years ago, where you see riots, you see military men, you see even the soldiers. And I had also a fair share of it. Sometimes when coming back from school, you just go into like a riot. My dad was taking us back home one of those days. We were almost burnt in our car going back home. So for me, the activities of this week has also, brought back those emotions that I've tried to suppress, over the years. How would you encapsulate all of this, especially with the international dimension that it is getting right now?
Nancy, even from the time the NSAS demonstrations started, it had gotten international attention. You will observe that a lot of musical icons, a lot of social media titans had actually tweeted NSAS on their Twitter handles. So it had gotten a lot of global attention. Many international media houses had actually broadcasted the demonstrations, particularly the one at the toll gate. Which is why it was very strange to me that we could have adopted such forceful way of dispersing such groups when we knew the world attention was on them. And but the key thing for me is that the agitations, if you look at the issues that the young people we are protesting against, are things that are at the foundation of turning around this country into a society that we should be proud to live in. The issues on, of course, we know that the NSAS issue was a slogan or the factor that was central to the demonstrations. But there were other factors that we know that contributed to the discomfort and dissatisfaction of young people about this country. And which is, for me, what the government should do. It's a golden opportunity for the government to latch on to those things and say, well, we'll find solutions to it. Nancy, let's look at how the country has affected the young people. I've always shared with you on your program my own experience growing up, the opportunities of getting jobs. I did not know anybody to get the first job I got. I had never gone about applying for jobs. In a lot of instances, employers of labor approached me because they had records of my performance in my previous employment. But today, first-class graduates are looking for jobs. There's no prospect of getting jobs. Look at the report from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. It said about 63% of Nigerian aged between 15 and 34 are either unemployed or underemployed. That report said that 34.9% of people between the age of 15 and 34 are unemployed. And then another 28.2% are underemployed. That's 63% of young people. And recall that the age, look at the demography of Nigeria, those between the ages of 15 and 39 form about 40% of the population. It simply means about 8 out of the 80 million Nigerians who are in the age of 15 and 39, 63% of them are unemployed. So what kind of country do you think we are running? How do you think these people will feel? And each year you have 2 million people who have applied for jobs. So if you take that as about the number of people, just take it about 1.5 million graduates every year. In 10 years, you have 15 million people who are unemployed. Today, there's a 99% chance that a fresh graduate will not get a job unless your father or your mother is so rich or so connected that they will give you a job. They can get you a job. Otherwise, if you are the child of an ordinary Nigerian, your prospect of getting a job is almost zero. And that's what people are asking for. That's what we should be asking. How do we turn around this economy? How do we create an environment, an economic system that will create jobs? So as to take out this discomfort and pain that our young people are going through. And I think the government must not paper over this. It's a clarion call. I've always told my friends and that, look, we need to do something quickly about the number of young people who are unemployed, that if we don't do anything in the next 10 years, I am sure the country will unravel. I don't know how it will happen, but I think as a people, we need to fold our sleeves and create an economic environment that will create jobs. There is no society where 99% of graduates do not have any chance of getting jobs. Now, I relate with youth corpers. The painful thing, if you talk to youth corpers, they don't even want the service year to finish, to end, because they don't know where to go to after the service year. Many of them think they don't want to go back to my parents' homes, particularly those who don't come from very wealthy families. I can't go back to my mother and father and continue to depend on them to feed. So that's the situation, that's the reality that the young people are facing. And we must recognize that. We must not overlook it.
Do you think that do you think that the president recognized that in his speech? Because even inside the speech, he also mentioned policies and initiatives put the efforts by governments for youth development. He talked about paying 3 months' salaries of staff of 100,000 MSMEs, paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at Corporate Affairs Commission, giving grants of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans. He also spoke about farmer money, trader money, market money, agro, N-Power, N-Tech. Did you think that resonated well, especially with the mood of the nation? Because the #EndSARS protest had that kind of economic undertone. It's for people that were watching. They also said that it went beyond the police brutality, which it started with. So do you think that the president was able to, give us that information or allow that message to sink into us?
What I think is that when I heard him talk about what they're doing to create opportunities and employment for the youth, I felt that was a motive. Maybe the way the language was couched did not really convey succinctly that message, but I think that was the motive of the president talking about the EndSARS, the market money. The market money, the trader money, and all the intervention schemes they have to create employment. Well, I think the situation we have today is a call for a declaration of a state of emergency as it relates to employment. And when you do that, the government will now come up with policies at all stages, at all stratas of government on how to create private sector employment. And that is what will take out people from the labor market. There's a limit to which the government can create employment in the public sector. When we do that, what we're doing is basically creating inefficiencies, because those people are employed, they don't have jobs, and in effect, they become underemployed. They just collect salaries from government, and they have all the time in the world to maybe sometimes engage in activities that may not be so altruistic. I think for you to have the right economic environment, we need to encourage the private sector to create employment. And one of the reasons that you see countries like Ghana turning into the hub of activities in West Africa is because you don't have the level of unemployment you have today. Ghanaians can always largely find jobs within their country. And that has been the reason why their country is literally safer than ours, despite the fact that we're in the same region, sub-region.
Mr. Chukwu, people will come with an argument that Nigeria is like almost 10 times Ghana. Ghana's population, I think the last time was about 25 or 20 million, if I'm not mistaken. I think South Africa is about 45, 50 million. So Ghana is like 10 times Nigeria. So does that argument stand?
It doesn't at all, Nancy. It doesn't at all. Let me tell you, World Poverty Clock in June 2018 said Nigeria has 86.9 million poor people, global, extremely poor. India,
and they said also that 6 people go into poverty every 60 seconds in Nigeria. 1 minute. I remember the report even came out in 2017. I sounded the alarm. I saw the report. I sounded the alarm for 1 week. They were not even listening to me.
Yes. So I want to just drive it home. India, which has a population about 7 times, I repeat, 7 times the population of Nigeria, has only 71 million poor, extremely poor. We have 86.9 million as of June 2018. Our population is just barely 200 million. The level of, as a percentage of unemployed and underemployed, Nigeria has about 55% of its labor force unemployed or underemployed. Because if you consider that as a second quarter of this year, 27.1% of Nigeria population of labor force was unemployed, and another 28.6% were underemployed. That's about over 55% of Nigerian working population that we are unemployed or underemployed. China has more than 1.3 billion population. They don't have 55% of their population underemployed or unemployed. So it has nothing to do with the size of the population. We are not among the top 5 largest populated country in the world, but we are not the poverty capital of the world. It has to do with economic policies. It has to do with how the country has been run for the past 20 or 30 years. I'm not passing the buck blame on just on the footsteps of Mr. President, but I think it is now the buck stops on his table today. It is now his call to come up with the policies that will begin to reduce the number of poor people in the country. The president has said that he wants to lift 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years. We need to see those policies.
Mr. Chukwu, is that strategy working? Because if you give it also to this government, they've been coming up with policies. There's a youth investment fund of 75 billion naira. Central Bank of Nigeria has many initiatives. Ask me the COVID-19 100 billion naira now, because initially it was 50 billion. They added 50 billion. So many initiatives. But is the strategy working? Take a look at what I saw that happened in Lagos yesterday. The COVID-19 palliatives contributed by CACOVID. You contributed in the heat of that lockdown.
We contributed.
Yes, you contributed, and the money is then close to 27 billion naira. Lagosians, some residents yesterday found a warehouse where some of those products that should have been shared to Nigerians were there. And people were there looting, that's taking those products that are supposed to have been shared. For over 2 hours, people will, in fact, I saw a security official van even carrying his either bags of rice or bags of gari there. So what does it really tell you? That people are indeed hungry. An angry man is a hungry man is an angry man. So people, how do you manage even the anger and the hunger at this point? How do you manage that people are hungry, people don't have jobs? What you're supposed to give to them, you're not giving to them. It was left in the warehouses there for a long time until they found it out and started sharing yesterday. So how do you dot the I's and cross the T's at this point? So what I'm saying in essence is that this government, if you give it to them, has many initiatives, but it seems not to be working.
I wouldn't say it seems not to be working. What I would say is that we need to fine-tune some of those initiatives. Let me just take a few examples. The trader money, I think they give them about 10,000 naira or so, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong. Yes. I'm not sure it's more than 20,000 naira.
If you pay back, they will give you another amount. They will give you, I think, 15.
If you give a married woman with 3 kids 10,000 naira, I can tell you that she's not going to use it to buy any product to sell. She will use it to buy food items to feed her family. The approach of giving peanuts as capital is defective. My approach would be that you identify those who have viable business ideas, which is in tandem with some of the policies they are coming up with, and then give them maybe 100,000 naira so that they have sufficient capital to trade. And then you make sure you track what they're doing, and then you appoint inspectors to monitor them and get maybe this payment. This funding should actually be disbursed through microfinance banks as form of credit that are actually guaranteed by the state.
Mr. Chukwu, we have those things existing right now. There was a Development Bank of Nigeria that was set up I think it was during Okonjo-Iweala's period that they molded the idea of having a development bank of Nigeria. It is working now. Tony Okpanachi is the chief executive officer at Development Bank of Nigeria. They liaise with microfinance banks, give them credit too. So all those things are happening. So what is the difference that some of those things are not getting to where it should get? Look at the pictures we saw yesterday. You contributed money for COVID. Central Bank contributed money. The big men, the billionaires, brought out money during that period. Some of those produce still found in the warehouse after many months lockdown. I don't know if they're still sharing it, but people found it yesterday.
Okay, Nancy, I'm not standing in defense of the state government, but I understand the state government has come out with a press release to say that those items were brought into that warehouse on the 2nd of September, and that the warehouse is like a central warehouse where distribution is supposed to take place to other zones of the state. And from those zones, the food items would have been distributed to the individual beneficiaries. I understand that's what the Lagos State government has come out to say. But the reality is, you have to ask yourself is that why would people be going to steal goats, steal fowls, steal cubes, spaghetti, rice? It's because the system is such that a lot of Nigerians are impoverished. I looked at Oxfam's report. Oxfam said about 112 million Nigerians are in abject poverty. That is more than 50% of our population. In situations like that, the first priority is to eat. And whenever they see the food, they will go for it. And that's what you saw by people going to the warehouse to get whatever they could. I saw people on social media carrying rice and running. And it's like people were beckoning on others to please come on. We found the store where you can get whatever you wanted. But it just brings to the fore the level of poverty we have today. Nancy, there's no way you would have gone to go and carry rice even if they brought it in front of your doorstep, because you don't need it. We need to build a society where averagely Nigerians
Mr. Chukwu, even if I don't need it, I have people that will need it. So don't say I may carry too to give people. You know, because in Nigeria we have that, as you are right now, you have a lot of dependents on you. Yes or no? You do have. So it's not even about yourself. Some of us have gone beyond ourselves. It's not about ourselves anymore. We're thinking of others. So let's say I even see that I will carry and give to people that need it.
That's very unlikely. You would rather buy or send the money to buy those items. But the basic thing is that handouts do not work. I need to emphasize that. Economic policies cannot be driven around giving out handouts for households. We need to create opportunities for each and every able-bodied man or woman to be gainfully employed, to earn his or her own income, to take care of his or her own children, to feed his or her own families, and to provide the basic necessities of life. Handouts are not the way to grow economy. They are not the way to take people out of poverty. There is an old saying that says, teach me how to fish and not just give me fish. What we're doing is giving them fish, and it does not work.
Mr. Chukwu, let's take a look at this scenario, especially right now playing out. The International Monetary Fund spoke yesterday at the sidelines of the IMF World Bank meeting, the press briefing by the director of the African department, that they're also monitoring the social unrest in the country, and it's also due to economic challenges. If you take a look at what you just said right now, it's not about handouts. And if you even take a look at it, the government may not have the capacity to continue to give handouts. I want to see how long the government will do that. It's about building a very good or viral environment, business environment, where people like you and people of the private sector extraction can prosper and employ people. Look at the losses that private sector have also encountered during this period. I saw the BRT terminal in Lagos being burnt down. The company that controls that, say over 100 million naira, have been lost at least in the past 6 days. I saw that news, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Some banks have been vandalized. Their ATMs have also been vandalized. You see shops, malls, even state infrastructure, MPA building, high courts or courts premises burned down. Also saddening for me is police stations. We are talking about reform police, reform police. The little infrastructure that the police have been vandalized by hoodlums, I must say. But the president even said in the speech yesterday by so-called protesters in the 8th paragraph of the speech. So how do you put all of this together? How do we begin to recover from these losses? We are a country that is just coming down from the great lockdown that affected the whole world. We're just trying to get ourselves in order. And the little things we have are still being destroyed. And there seems to be no explanation for it, that things will just go like that.
Nancy, for me, it was heart-wrenching that the miscreants took the advantage of the demonstration by altruistic and nationalistic Nigerians to unleash mayhem on this economy of the country. It happened in Lagos. It happened in virtually all many states of the country. We saw public assets destroyed. We saw private assets stolen, vandalized and stolen. And I can tell you, based on my experience, that these were actually unleashed by miscreants, by hoodlums, which brings to the issue of the focus of the policing or the law enforcement. Before the shooting on Friday, on Tuesday evening, these miscreants had actually started abusing the opportunities or abusing the demonstrations or protests. And unfortunately, I'm not aware that they were frontally confronted. I mean, you could actually separate the miscreants from the demonstrators. They were like day and night. You can see the stark difference between the two of them, because I encountered them severally on that Tuesday evening. But unfortunately, they were not, the policing system did not separate the two. Rather, the peaceful ones were the ones that were attacked. And then the hoodlums now took advantage of those attacks to now camouflage themselves as part of the protesters and unleashed mayhem. The level of losses we suffered in Lagos is monumental. I know a couple of my friends who lost their business offices, who lost their stock. In fact, even one of my gas stations in Enugu was partly vandalized by the demonstrators or the hoodlums. Not even I wouldn't call them demonstrators, the hoodlums.
Now the question is that who will pay back, or where will compensation come from? That brings to us the insurance cost of this. Many Nigerians are not insurance savvy. So you understand what I mean? Many Nigerians that have also lost not just even their lives, their businesses, are MSMEs. In Lagos, for example, I think we have close to 13 or 14 million of the 41.5 million micro enterprises in Nigeria just in Lagos. We are seeing that the coffee has been imposed on close to, if not more than 10 states as we speak right now. My own home state of Delta, yesterday, around Coca, the FRSC office burnt down. So you just see stories of carnage in the country in the past few days. And there seems to be a lot of people are still angry, and even angry that some of their losses, who would pay for it? Who will compensate them for it?
Well, unfortunately, like you said, we don't have so much of an insurance culture here. But in spite of that, I believe the insurance companies are going to suffer huge claims. They're going to suffer huge claims. A number of the micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises operators did not insure their wares, did not insure their stock, did not insure their shops, and may have to absorb the losses. Unfortunately, we are all coming from a period of economic crisis occasioned by COVID-19, and that we're now facing these man-made losses. But for those institutional leakages that we saw, I believe the insurance companies will be the ultimate losers. I can't imagine an NPA building not being insured. I can't imagine TVC not being insured. I can't imagine the Nation newspaper not being insured. I can't imagine a Psycho Mall, ShopRite not being insured. So some of these, I can't imagine those Lagos State public transport buses not being insured. These are claims that we crystallize in the books of the insurance company. So the insurance industry is going to go into a serious crisis, I can tell you, Nancy.
I come to think of it, the regulator has also been on their neck in terms of recapitalization. So perhaps this may also make them push the goalposts further that we've been seeing. There's a lot of dimension to all of this, really.
Absolutely. And as it stands today, I don't know, but whatever the government can do, the government has already created a survival fund to pay the salaries of small and medium-scale enterprises that are unable to sustain salary payment. But I think with what we've seen now, like I keep emphasizing, we need to create opportunities for people to be gainfully employed. And this will further contract those opportunities because some people could be taken out of business as a result of the losses they would have suffered. The government may need to step in to support some of these businesses.
Mr. Chukwu, I think we have to go, but let's answer this like in 30 seconds. How do you think this will affect the risk perception of the country moving forward? Because this is a country that is still being watched globally. The way it is right now, the risks have been heightened in the country. What do you think?
Nancy, in terms of risk rating, I think the rating agencies will Mr.
Chukwu, are you still there?
Negative to stable outlook by Fitch. They may consider reviewing our risk rating again. Here we have a heightened political risk as it stands today. And I pray that we put to rest, we'll arrest this issue and not allow it to degenerate further, because if it does, we could be moving to a state of anarchy, which we all pray that we don't ever degenerate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chukwu. We'll continue to watch the development. Of course, the curfews and business slowdown we're seeing will indeed prolong the contraction, because there's a looming recession, which the president even announced himself. These situations or these activities around the country will not even help us anyway. So it's also left the buck stops at the government table to do what is right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chukwu, for speaking with us today. I wish you a great weekend.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, that's the much you can take on today's edition of the program. Continue to keep safe where you are. Let's also pray this period. Like I said earlier on, many Nigerians that I know, those I have spoken to, even personally speaking, have been so distraught in the past few days. But let's pray for healing. Let's pray for those that have also lost their lives, that their loved ones and their families would be at peace at this period. I am Nnaji. I will see you next week. Bye now.